All right, so we are going to talk about conclusions. You are getting to the point in your essay where a conclusion is going to be necessary, and so we need to figure out how to do that. Now, a conclusion and a strong conclusion is super important because it is the lasting impression that you give to your audience. If you think about like a debate or a courtroom kind of a thing, like if you're a lawyer or whatever, that those closing statements are the most important one because that's the last impression you get on the jury, on the judges, whoever it is, and you want to make that lasting impression. You want to be the one that shocks and has a saying or has a phrase or has something in your conclusion that makes the audience like think about your paper even after you're done. It should also give off a feeling of completeness and finality, meaning that your paper should feel done when you're done with your conclusion. It shouldn't be like a, really? Is that it? Is that the last thing that you said? Huh, all right. And so sometimes that's a little bit more difficult to do with this kind of a conclusion, just because you don't know when to stop. I'm kind of bad at that too. There are times where I just keep rambling my paper, and I'm like, oh, I should have stopped it 3, 4 sentences ago, and then I usually cut it out. This last one is very, very important. It's a good place to remind people of your thesis and arguments. And this is done at the beginning of the conclusion. So, if you think back to your thesis statement, the thesis statement is the very last thing in your introduction, where in this case it is the first thing in your conclusion. One of the other things with this is that you normally switch around the wording just a little bit. So you might have ended with Huck and Tom in the last one, and now you might say Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer represents blah, but represents this, and then it's Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. You might just switch it around just a little bit, kind of a deal. Okay, so put it at the very, very beginning, and then you do the rest of it, which is what I'm coming up with here next. One of the couple things as well, you don't have to say the words in conclusion, in summary, to conclude this essay. Don't do that. That's like elementary stuff. You're juniors in high school. You don't need those words, okay? I think I've seen a couple already where it says, I think, or this quote. You don't have to reference the stuff. You don't have to reference yourself. You don't have to reference that it is a conclusion. They're going to know because it's the last paragraph of your essay. So you don't need to tell us. You can just start with the thesis statement and go from there, okay? Now, there are plenty of conclusion types. The one here currently, the summary one, is probably the most common one, I would say. And it's one that you can use. Just summing it up, what you have written. This is pretty decent for papers that are confusing or have a lot of detail. And one of the things that a summary one does is it connects it to the world. And I think all of these conclusions in general have one common thread, is that they answer the question, who cares? Great, you just wrote this essay about Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, a book that came out 140 years ago. Who cares? Should we care? Why should we care? Tell me why I should care about this book and how it relates to today. If you don't think it is, if you don't think it does, think back to what we have talked about before we started reading Huckleberry Finn. That might spin some wheels there for you, okay? Next one is prediction. I don't know if I would really use this one for this essay, but this one might be good for an argument essay, like if you are trying to get something started, or if you're trying to create a law, if you're trying to create a rule, if you're trying to get the school, the community, the state, whatever, to do something, make a prediction. If we don't do this, this is going to happen. Or if we do this, this is what will happen. You see a lot of time, probably with the election, if you vote or if Trump remains president, I guess. If Trump remains president, this is what's going to happen, positive or negative, whichever way you want to look at that. Same with Biden. If Biden becomes president, this is going to be your future, positive or negative, whichever way you would want to write it. And so it's an argument one. It is, tell me what's going to happen if your plan, if your argument comes to fruition, or if it doesn't. The next one is a question. You leave them with a question that leaves you thinking. This one's really tough to do. Just simply because it's a rhetorical question that is supposed to keep you thinking, and it's supposed to make you kind of keep the essay in your head, keep the argument in your head, keep the paper in your head as you are done reading it. And it's like, I never thought of it that way, kind of a deal. Usually this is like an Allstate kind of commercial. Allstate slogan is, are you in good hands? And that's a question, and it leaves you wondering, am I in good hands? And so, I don't know if I would use this one for this essay, but there might be ones later on where where maybe, for our American Dream one, you might end it with, do you still believe in the American Dream? Once we get there, that'll make way more sense. But until then, I would maybe stay away from this one for this essay, because I don't know many questions that you could ask for it, if that makes sense. Some stats. This one might be more for an argument as well. Unlike a debate where you can't bring out any new information, you can at a conclusion because it's your essay. And if you want your most startling fact, your most important fact, your most significant fact, the one that you want to leave people with, this is the one that you do. Okay? Make sure it fits with your essay, though. Don't be talking about Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn and then give me some stat about, the Chinese Empire or something like that. That makes no sense. So make sure it stays connected to your essay. And this one's a call to action, and this one might be one that you can use. And a lot of these you can kind of intermingle. Like, you could ask a question and do a call to action. You can do a prediction and a call to action. It might be if Trump remains your president, these are the positive things that are going to happen. So a call to action wants to do something. So I would urge you to vote for whoever it is, kind of a deal. Or go the opposite way. Whatever your argument's going to be, you want them to do something. Go out and vote. Talk to your, congressman. Be at the rally. Talk to the school board, kind of a deal. Do something to engage people with your paper. Read more about it, like those kind of things. That's a call to action. This one, I don't know how well you could do it with this essay. I'm just trying to think about, what are some things that you could do, and maybe you connect it to the real world, and then you have a call to action. You could do something like that. But for the most part, I think the two that I would do are the ones from before. I would do and actually summary probably would just be your best one. So there is conclusion. So start with your thesis statement. Give me your reasons. Summarize your arguments up just a little bit more. 1 to 2 sentences for Tom, 1 to 2 sentences for Huck. And then basically the biggest issue is, tell me why I should care. You wrote this essay. You made your arguments. Why do I care? And that's how I'm going to leave you. Are you in good hands? I don't know.